The views and opinions expressed on America's Workforce Union podcast and its digital media channels are solely those of the speakers and do not necessarily represent the views and opinions of the producers or sponsors.
Welcome to the America's Workforce Radio Podcast, the flagship production of the American Workers Radio and Podcast Network, where organized labor and its never-ending fight to protect the rights of the American worker come first. Now, presented by LIUNA, Laborers International Union of North America. Here's your host, Ed Flash Ferens.
A win for steelworkers in New York. No strike at Hershey Park after the Chocolate Workers Union ratifies a new contract. And today on the show, how nuclear power is creating jobs, and lots of them in the state of Tennessee. Welcome to the Thursday, June 18th edition of America's Workforce, where we're available on at least 5 platforms, including YouTube, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and Pandora. Well, today is Trades Day here on America's Workforce. Every Tuesday and Thursday, we talk trades, and lots of them in the state of Tennessee. Our featured guest is Bill Tindal. Now, Bill is director of the Tennessee Nuclear Network. Here is the website you want to check out, eteconline.org, eteconline.org. Bill is detailed to serve as the director of the Tennessee Nuclear Network, where he leads statewide efforts to strengthen the state's nuclear workforce, expand partnerships, and advance what's called strategic initiatives supporting the region's rapidly growing nuclear sector. Now, there's been a huge investment here. We're talking $10 billion. You got state, federal funds, and job creation. I mean, at least 3,000 jobs. They cover a whole lot of the skilled trades. And right now, the Tennessee Nuclear Network is engaged in workforce development through high schools, through community colleges, schools of applied technology, universities, and, of course, the trade unions. And he's going to speak to that on what's happening and what may happen in other states because of what they're doing in the state of Tennessee. So Bill Tindal will be our featured guest on the show today. And now, a brief look into the world of labor. This segment brought to you by Boyd Watterson Asset Management. We're talking $38 billion of assets under advisement. You can find more at boydwatterson.com. Good news from the United Steelworkers, one of the many proud sponsors here on America's Workforce. The union says that members have ratified a new 4-year master contract with Arconic. What's Arconic? That used to be Alcoa. That's right, legendary company. This deal covers roughly 965 workers at operations in Indiana as well as New York. USW International Vice President Emil Ramirez said that membership solidarity was essential to winning economic and contract language improvements for the employees. And this is what Emil said: the unity of our membership across both master locations empowered the committee to negotiate improvements to wages as well as benefits. When union workers stand together in the name of fairness and justice, there are no limits to what we can accomplish. Mike Millsap is the District 7 director, and said that union members sent a strong message by rejecting a previous tentative agreement and holding subsequent strike authorization votes prior to concluding negotiations. He went on to say, the membership earns and deserves fair wage increases, high-quality health care coverage, and retirement with dignity. We are proud to say that the solidarity of Alcoa's USW-represented workforce allowed us to achieve our bargaining goals. So congratulations to the steelworkers on securing that new 4-year master contract with Arconic. Hershey Entertainment and Resorts ratified an agreement with the Chocolate Workers Local Union number 464, preventing a possible strike. I didn't know there was a Chocolate Workers Union. That's a great one. Congratulations to them on this one. The union represents over 4,000 employees at Hershey Park, Hotel Hershey, and the Giant Center in Hershey, Pennsylvania. The union strongly encouraged its members to vote in favor of the fifth potential contract to reach a vote since the start of the talks, as those tentative terms come on the deals of the workers rejecting a fourth possible contract last month. Though the terms of the new agreement with the chocolate giant were not disclosed, union reps and members said they were seeking stronger retirement benefits, higher wages, and reduced health care costs. Ratifying the 5-year deal avoided a shutdown of Hershey Park ahead of the summer tourist season, and the park was able to open with no delays. The last of 5 groups to vote in favor of the contract were Hotel Hershey employees. Hershey Lodge and Hershey Country Club workers had voted to ratify their own deal with the company. That happened last month. And after almost 3 years of negotiations, the staff at the American Civil Liberties Union of the District of Columbia have ratified a first contract as members of the Washington-Baltimore News Guild, which is part of the Communication Workers of America, Local 32035. This landmark agreement establishes a number of major wins, including an average raise of 11.5%, additional annual wage increases, student debt support, fully employer-paid health insurance premiums. Let me repeat that. Fully employer-paid health insurance premiums, layoff protections, and much more. Wow. Yvonne Slasarski is the chair of the bargaining committee. Yvonne said, "We spent nearly 3 years at the bargaining table fighting for a contract that reflects the value of the work we do every day to protect civil liberties in the district." So congratulations to the ACLU of the District of Columbia. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about nuclear power. What is happening in the state of Tennessee and the number of jobs, union jobs, that are being created. That story right after this on America's Workforce.
You're listening to America's Workforce with Ed Flash Ferens.
It takes LIUNA to keep America running. Over 70,000 public employees are part of LIUNA, the Laborers International Union of North America, delivering critical services such as healthcare and emergency response, as well as maintaining roads and sanitation systems. Even the National Postal Mail Handlers Union, representing over 47,000 U.S. postal workers, is affiliated with LIUNA. Find out what it takes for LIUNA to keep America running at liuna.org. That's liuna.org.
America's Workforce is brought to you in part by the Communication Workers of America. You can find more at cwa-union.org. This segment of the show is brought to you by the Brotherhood of Maintenance of Way Employees Division of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters. For more information, please visit bmwe.org. Blue Cross and Blue Shield companies formed out of a need to provide affordable health care to teachers, to loggers, and miners. Back in 1965, the Blues developed the National Labor Office to strengthen its commitment to organized labor. Blue Cross Blue Shield's National Labor Office remains focused on America's workers, advocating for affordable and equitable health care, partnering with strategic alliances to provide industry-leading products and services, and proudly serving more than 18 million unionized workers, retirees, and their families, all working hard for America's working families, for the health of America. You can learn more by following them at Blue Labor on LinkedIn and X, formerly known as Twitter. America's Workforce is presented by the Laborers International Union of North America. Feel the power right now at liuna.org. America's Workforce is brought to you in part by the United Steelworkers. You can find more at usw.org. Founded in 1887, the Brotherhood of Maintenance of Way Employees Division of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters represents the employees responsible for tirelessly constructing and maintaining the national rail system in America. For more than a century, the Brotherhood of Maintenance of Way Employees has proven they have what it takes to protect its members and meet the ever-changing challenges of the rail industry. Today, the BMWED continues to fight for job security, fair wages, better benefits, and safer, more modern work environments. For more information, please visit bmwe.org.
Now, back to America's Workforce. Here's Ed Flash Ferens.
And remember, you can check us out on Facebook or follow us on X, formerly known as Twitter. That would be AWF Union Podcast. AWF Union Podcast. You know, we have a thirst for energy in the United States. And I keep going back to the conversation I had with Terry O'Sullivan, who was then president of our presenting sponsor, Labor's International Union of North America. And we were talking at that time about the Keystone Pipeline. And there was a controversy on that. And Terry said, you know, Flash, we need everything. We need oil. We need gas. We need nuclear power. We need wind. We need solar. The thirst for energy in this country is enormous, and it will continue to grow with our population. And joining us as our featured guest today is Bill Tindal. Bill is the director of the Tennessee Nuclear Network. And here's a website you want to go to, eteconline.org, etechonline.org. And Bill is going to tell us what's happening in the great state of Tennessee. Bill, welcome to America's Workforce. Thanks for joining us. And before we get into what you're doing there, I read a part of your bio at the beginning of the show. Maybe you could fill me in on how you got involved in this field. Let's start right there, brother. Go ahead.
I appreciate it. I'm thrilled to be online with you guys and be able to kind of share where things are going in Tennessee. My background is in nuclear operations. So I've spent my entire career either in the defense nuclear sector. So most of my career was at a facility called the Y-12 National Security Complex, where we handle highly enriched uranium for defense purposes. And we probably will just leave it at that. We did a lot of work on the weapons programs. Great part of my history. I retired from there in 22. Like a lot of early retirees, I potted around for a little while trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And then I joined up with a company called Omega Technical Services. I've been their CEO now for a couple years. But when the opportunity came up to run the Tennessee Nuclear Network, my boss at Omega said that would be a great loaned executive. So my role right now is to help get the Tennessee Nuclear Network on its feet, get its infrastructure in place, get our business processes in place, and then hire a more permanent director in about 18 months from now. So that's my background.
Well, Bill, what really caught my attention is, well, number one, we do need the power, but the jobs connection to all this. And I'm reading about the possibility of up to 3,000 jobs. I want to get into that. So tell me about the Tennessee Nuclear Network, if we can get into that, and what we're looking at down the road. Obviously, you have a projection here of nuclear power in the state of Tennessee and what the state is doing to ensure that that happens.
So in its short form, the Tennessee Nuclear Network is the state's designated organization. Our main priority is to convene all of the nuclear businesses in the area, all of the support structure needed by those businesses, the educational institutions that are going to be needed to supply the workforce for those, and also to coordinate the supply chain around those. One thing I've observed in being in the job now for a little bit over 2 months is that there are a wide variety of people out there trying to do good. Our role is to help coordinate those things so that they're all headed in the right direction, in the same direction.
So can we talk about what you'd like to see down the road as far as how many nuclear power plants? And I also want to get into, obviously, the people that build them and operate them. You're talking about a skilled workforce. And I'll tell you, every day I talk about the skilled workforce, the union workforce here on America's Workforce. So let's speak to that if we can.
Sure. I think one of the things I wanted to cover too is why Tennessee and why we're seeing the growth of industries in the Oak Ridge, East Tennessee area. It's primarily three things. One, we have a proximity to the Oak Ridge National Laboratory. So you've got a lot of technical expertise with respect to reactors and nuclear. Oak Ridge was the birthplace of nuclear for the country. Number two is you've got land. You've got formerly federal lands that are being freed up for a lot of the industries in the area. And we've got several of them coming. I'll cover a little bit more of that later. And the third piece, which is also very unique, is that you've got a community that is very comfortable with things that are nuclear. Not all communities are going to embrace that kind of a work, but yet this area has been used to that for almost 80 years now, and it's just part of who we are. So the kind of companies that have come to the Oak Ridge, Anderson, and Roane County areas represent the complete life cycle. They represent enriching uranium for reactor purposes, fabricating fuel, accident-tolerant fuel, what we like to call it, as well as small modular reactor fabrication and recycling used nuclear fuel. So we have the entire life cycle in this one area. One of my objectives from the Tennessee Nuclear Network is to both make sure that we have the workforce, the supply chain, all those things are lined up to support those companies. But we also, it's a Tennessee thing for me, that we need to make sure that the benefit that we're seeing in the East Tennessee area spreads throughout the state and also to the neighboring states where we know we have partnerships with other states that are going to be important. So one of the things we did in the last month to help make sure that there was connectivity with the trades was we put together a Pathways to Trade Summit. It was organized by Oak Ridge Associated Universities, but it was done through the Tennessee Nuclear Network. And the intent of the Trade Summit was twofold. And it was one, to connect people, high schools, educational institutions, to the trades to make sure that there's connectivity in what those needs are going to be and what the technical requirements should be for their training programs. And number two, I wanted to make sure we connected the local companies who say that there are workforce demand issues with the trades and the trade unions specifically, because they have an opportunity to help be a solution to workforce demand issues. And if you don't make that connection, it may not get solved.
And in your estimation, did that work pretty well, that Pathways to Trade Summit? Did it live up to its expectations?
I think it's going to grow from here. With any kind of summit like that, the question is, are you going to have a second one? And we were definitely in violent agreement that we needed to have a second one next year.
Let's talk about the conversation, if you will. You mentioned, and I go back to the 3 Mile Island days, and then you had Chernobyl, and obviously there was Hollywood that got into this with the China syndrome and things of that nature. And it was a scary time, and they said, oh, we can't do that. It's not safe. Well, things have changed, and it seems like now nuclear is back. Data centers are out. They're not out. They're here. They're here. Let's be honest about it. But that conversation that happened maybe in the 70s and 80s about nuclear power is now shifted. And I'm just wondering if you can talk about that shift, if you will.
What we don't want in our backyard kind of changes on what community you're in. Yeah. We're in an area where there's comfort level with nuclear. It is a matter of what's important to the communities. From a Tennessee Nuclear Network perspective, we want to be supportive of all the communities in Tennessee. Those communities that don't want either a supply chain or things like that, it's not something that anyone's going to force down anyone's throat. What we're viewing it is as an opportunity. From an economic perspective, we're seeing about upwards of $10 billion worth of investment in these kind of companies. That investment then turns into economic impact all the way around it. And so if this nuclear is something that is something I'm not comfortable with, there are enough things on the surrounding impacts, whether it's supply chain or support, where that economic impact is going to hit you in a positive way.
What I know about Tennessee, I know it's very business friendly with the legislature there. And I'm just wondering if you could speak to that on getting this on board, because, the $10 billion, obviously, that raises a few eyebrows. Wow, we're going to do that. And obviously job creation. I mentioned the 3,000. How did you arrive at that number? And what's the timeline on that?
It's a mixture of private investment along with government investment. So the governor of Tennessee put aside a nuclear fund to help bring companies in the area and help not just the companies themselves, but we have a local community college, Roane State Community College. There are funds that went to that community college to help with the nuclear technician program that is really taken off.
So, Bill, let me ask you this. It sounds to me that the community is pretty much on board? And I mentioned like these data centers and all that. There's pushback on that, but we do need those data centers. Let's be honest about that because of all the information that has to be stored. And we are in a technological world today. I get that whole thing. But when it comes to the nuclear power aspect, the communities are pretty much on board. And also you mentioned the institutions that are going to train the workers. Can you speak to that part?
Absolutely. So that's been one of the focus areas very early on. And you might ask, are those workforce projections going to be accurate? Out of every 10 projects that are out there, not all of them are going to be successful. And so we factor that into some of those projections. One comment too, though, is, there was a point, and you kind of referenced to it in both of our lives, where there's going to be this resurgence. We're past that. We're past it. Is it going to happen? And we're in the middle of it actually happening. There are several facilities. We've got one nuclear reactor that is being constructed right now. We've got a fuel fabrication facility that the steel is going up. The demand signal is enough for them that they're building number 1. They're certain they're going to have to build building number 2, and there's plans for building number 3 to fabricate the accident-tolerant fuels that are going to supply these small modular reactors. So it's not a matter of if it's coming. It is not only here, and the hiring for not only the construction of these facilities, the technicians that are needed to operate them once they're built, as well as the professional staff that will support those, they're being hired now. I mean, we had our monthly meeting yesterday, and each of the projects that were reported out were showing growths in the tens to hundreds of staff right now. We know that's early in the curve. That curve is going to continue to grow, and it really is one that's going to affect all disciplines, whether you're in construction or technician or professional.
Oh, I like that story. Bill, I got to take a quick break. I want to get into some of the nitty gritty on those jobs and what it's going to take for those for the skilled workforce. I know a lot of people pay attention to this show. They're going to probably say to myself, maybe I should get over to Tennessee because I like the opportunities there. Bill Tindal is our featured guest on the show today. He is director of the Tennessee Nuclear Network. Tennessee has become a focal point for new nuclear companies. We're talking $10 billion in investment and the possibility of up to 3,000 jobs and then some. The website you want to go to is eTech, that's ETEC, etechonline.org. Back in a few minutes, you're listening to America's Workforce.
This is America's Workforce. More shows available at awfradio.com.
It takes LiUNA to power North America with affordable energy. The men and women of LiUNA, the Laborers International Union of North America, have the skills needed to build and maintain oil, natural gas, nuclear, solar, and wind projects that are shaping America's energy future. From new energy tech to retrofitted facilities, LiUNA members do it all. Find out what it takes to be powered by LiUNA at liuna.org. That's liuna.org.
America's Workforce Radio is sponsored in part by the International Union of Painters and Allied Trades, District Council 6, representing painters, glazers, drywall finishers, and sign and display industry workers. They remind you that belonging to a union is your right as an American.
America's Workforce is brought to you in part by the Ironworkers. You can find more at ironworkers.org. America's Workforce is brought to you in part by the International Federation of Professional and Technical Engineers. You can find more at ifpte.org.
America's Workforce is sponsored in part by Boyd Watterson Asset Management, LLC. Find out more about our investment solutions tailored to meet the needs of Taft-Hartley funds at boydwatterson.com.
America's Workforce is brought to you in part by the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, where you can find more at teamster.org. The Ironworkers Great Lakes District Council, consisting of 8 ironworker local unions in West Virginia, Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Michigan. We build the skylines and bridges along the Great Lakes. With more work than ever before, the Great Lakes District Council is actively searching out the next great ironworker. Whether it's building the next Intel plant or constructing a bridge to safely connect our great cities along the lake. So join the Ironworkers Great Lakes District Council today. Find out how and learn more about the council by visiting iwdistrictcouncil.com.
There is unity and strength for workers.
We are the USW.
We are the USW.
The United Steelworkers.
The largest industrial union in North America.
We represent 850,000 members in the U.S., Canada, and the Caribbean.
We work in metals,
rubber,
chemicals,
paper,
oil refining,
atomic energy, and the service sector.
We are steelworkers, standing strong and fighting for what's right.
Now, back to Ed Flash Ferens with America's Workforce.
And remember, you can check us out on at least 5 platforms. That includes YouTube, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and Pandora. And when you get an opportunity, here's what you do. Just sign up and receive our shows on a regular basis and give us a rating. Always appreciate those 5-star ratings, so please keep them coming. We're talking about nuclear power on the show today, specifically what's happening in the state of Tennessee. Our featured guest is Bill Tindal. Bill is director of the Tennessee Nuclear Network. The website is eteconline.org. And just to recap, Tennessee has become a focal point for new nuclear companies. We're talking $10 billion of investment. You got private sector, you got the government joining in there. You mentioned thousands of jobs. I have a number here of 3,000 jobs, and obviously it's spread all over the spectrum here. You know, this is a show that concentrates on the skilled trades, you know, whether it's the plumbers, the electricians, the boiler makers. And you know, when we're talking about nuclear power, especially construction, there's got to be a lot of opportunities happening in the state of Tennessee right now. I don't know if you could break it down on the specific trades. Sure, we got a lot of people wondering, hey, you know what? I like what I'm hearing. I like what Flash is talking about on the show today. Maybe I should move over there and apply for one of these jobs. Maybe you could break it down for us. What do you think?
Now, first of all, we'd love to have you. Bring it on. A point that I wanted to make is that when we say nuclear jobs, the fraction of the jobs that really need specific nuclear training, particularly when it comes to the skilled trades, is relatively small. And it's really related to the quality level of work being done. In general terms, we need a little bit of everything. We need the electricians, we need pipe fitters, we need folks that are going to do metalworking. There's I&C technicians that are going to be necessary. So it's really an all of the above effort when it comes to skilled trades. And that's not just from the construction of the facilities, but it's in the operation of those facilities as well. When you fabricate a nuclear plant and you get it up and operating, there are a wide variety of skilled technician requirements that need specialized nuclear training. But at the end of the day, it's a power plant. And you're going to need those same kind of maintenance personnel that are going to be part of skilled trades that you would in any power plant, regardless of what the heat source is.
Bill, when it comes to the building of these plants, how many years of work are we looking at right now? And obviously, I mean, things could change here because, you know, if once it gets going and they see how successful, there will be more to come. What do you think?
So some of the numbers that I read yesterday were demand for energy in the U.S. between now and 2050 is going to quadruple. And again, that needs to be an all-of-the-above solution, both nuclear as well as any other electricity source that's out there. So to answer your question with that, it's going to continue to grow. I don't see it stopping in the lifetime of my grandkids.
The different kind of jobs here, these jobs, I mean, you got to get some good training. Let's be honest about it. You mentioned in the first segment about, you know, the universities and also the high schools. Are you targeting some of the high schools? I often talk with the trades. They're getting into a lot of the high schools saying, hey, you know what? You may not want to pursue a college degree because we could probably make more in the skilled trades. I'm sure a lot of that's happening right now, right?
There absolutely is. And if you don't mind, I'm going to take it from the other direction and work my way down to the high schools.
Sure.
Lots of involvement in the four-year institutions. Like I said earlier, there's need on the whole spectrum of staff, both on the professional side, the engineers, any of these businesses also are going to need the business staff, the human resources staff. So it's one of those things where we can't just focus on the nuclear trades. We have to focus on the entire ecosystem that allows these businesses to run. If you work down on the technical employee side, the technicians that are going to operate these enrichment facilities or fuel fabrication facilities, you're right on the money that there are specialized training that'll be required for those. We have a really strong partnership with the community colleges. There's a Tennessee Colleges of Applied Technology and the Tennessee Board of Regents are the state organizations that run the community colleges and the TCATs. which do the applied technology things. Those are really strong right now. The best example is Roane State Community College, and you're able to look that up as well. Well, I helped them put together a nuclear technology program, which we graduated this past spring, 9 of their first cohort. And almost all of them, all but one of them is already employed. And we have 40 now in the next cohort. So it's gone from 9 to 40. And what's unique about that is that you're learning the whole spectrum of things that might be nuclear, whether it's handling things in glove boxes, or whether it's handling solutions that might be radioactive. How do I want to conduct myself from a disciplined operations perspective? Because there's a high level of expectation that you're coming drug-free, that you're coming with your eye on the ball, and your attention to detail is there to make sure that we operate these facilities the way they're intended. From a high school standpoint, we also have a strong relationship there. Many of our high schools are involved with the community colleges, and there's one case where one of the reasons why one of the 9 that graduated from Roane State Community College couldn't go directly in the workforce is that he hadn't graduated high school yet. He had to go back and finish some of his credits in order to be able to get graduated. So there's dual enrollment opportunities for folks in high school that can be earning community college credit at the same time they're still a senior in high school.
Bill, what kind of salaries are we looking at? I'm sure, depending on the specialty and the knowledge that's needed to complete the job, it's got to be pretty broad. Can you share some of that information with our listeners?
Yeah, it's broad. I'll tell you when I don't know something, I'll tell you. And it depends on both the companies, and it's going to be dynamic. There is a demand right now on this kind of skilled labor. While I don't have specific numbers on what salaries would be, the fact that the demand is high means that these companies are likely going to be willing to pay at or above market to get people here to do the work.
Bill, if you don't mind, I want to talk about how the nuclear industry has changed. Well, all industries have changed. Let's be honest about that. Making a car today is much different than making a car back in the 70s. Working on a car is different today. You need a technician with a laptop computer to figure out what's wrong with the vehicle. Well, let's get into nuclear power here. And I think, if you go back to the 70s and 80s, so the American public was pretty scared about what was going to happen. But the plants today, and I'm just wondering if you could speak to that, on how they are different. And obviously tie that in with the workforce that's building those plants and then operating those plants. I think this was a good way to kind of wrap up this conversation, because it's good that Tennessee is doing this, but there's some that are probably wondering, well, what's going to happen in 5? What's going to happen in 10 years? Are we building these plants and then they're going to be extinct? I mean, that's what happened in years past. And I'm just wondering what you can reassure to our listeners right now in this conversation.
Yeah, the plants being designed today are not like those that were designed in the past. I mean, if you go back into the 60s and 70s, each one of those plants were unique. Every one of them was different in many different ways. And so the complexity on being able to maintain those, and if you say complexity, read that as expensive. Today, the building of the Generation 3 reactors that are coming out today, the large base load, like 1,000 megawatt reactors, the intention there is that they are all the same design from one place to another. And that gives you a lot more reliability, ease and maintainability, and therefore the cost is lower. The Generation 4 reactors, those that are walk-away safe, are those that can withstand any kind of, environmental issue that you might think of. But with that comes a lot of complexity in operation and in the design of them. I think from the standpoint of where we're headed in an area that is much more safe and reliable and more cost-effective. But that cost-effective comes with multiple copies. If we just go do one, that's not going to be very cost-effective. And if you look at the cost of any first of a kind, that's too expensive if you replicate that cost as you replicate more copies.
You mentioned earlier that Tennessee is obviously a focal point right now. I'm just wondering at this stage, and maybe premature, but what's happening in Tennessee when you throw, $10 billion and you're talking, thousands of jobs here? I'm sure other states are saying, hey, I want some of that. I want a piece of that pie. I don't know if that's spreading to other states in the area right now. Or...
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of state involvement. My intention is to move toward collaboration between the states. We've already been in discussions with the state of Texas. There's a lot of interest in Texas, both from a nuclear power standpoint, but as nuclear power is used not just for power, but as a heat source for industrial purposes. That's an area that is also being not just looked at, but that's one of the plans for that. We're also looking at a lot of the Carolinas, Virginia, other states are all looking at nuclear as part of the options. And we've been looking at ways to work together with those states so we can share our knowledge, receive knowledge from them where it makes sense so that we're all ultimately successful. This is a national imperative. It's not just a state imperative. And we're aware that we are just part of our larger community, and we will all benefit from working together.
So what happens in Tennessee may spread all around America. I like that. Bill Tindal, our featured guest on the show today. He is director of the Tennessee Nuclear Network. Now, here's the website you want to go to. It's ETEC, that's ETEC, eteconline.org, eteconline.org. Thank you for your time. Bill, if you don't mind, let's keep in touch on this issue because I could see maybe a future conversation on how things are progressing down in Tennessee. What do you think?
I'd love to.
And that'll be it for yet another edition of America's Workforce. Tomorrow, the latest from the American Legion and the Alliance for Retired Americans. Until then, all of you have a safe and wonderful day.
That concludes another episode of the America's Workforce Radio Podcast. Thanks for listening, and be sure to subscribe so you never miss a show. America's Workforce is a production of Labor Tools and BMA Media Group. Find out more information online at labortools.com.